Hey guys, welcome back. So in this video, we're going to talk a little bit about in Black people who are being rejected for mortgages. Now, I've heard this before about redlining back in the 1970s, and some people have reported it's still happening. Now, I was kind of skeptical. I was a little skeptical about it because I figured, well, this is 2025, 2024. Like, why are people still doing that based on race? But I came across this ABC News video that some applicants were rejected based on new data. So we're going to take a look. We'll talk about it on the other side.
The American dream, but the road to home ownership among some Black Americans can be a bumpy one. A new report by the Financial Times finds Black Americans are almost twice as likely to be turned away for financing than their white counterpart with the same income. LendingTree has also looked at the numbers, finding nationwide Black applicants are 1.7% more likely to be denied a mortgage than home buyers of all races. Limited generational wealth, income disparities, and discriminatory practices are just some of the challenges that keep the Black homeownership rate lower than other racial groups.
Now they're saying that they're being denied based on income for the same home because they're Black. They didn't indicate the credit. And I'm assuming as the video goes on that they will explain. But I want, based on what I have seen myself on my end, I've come across, especially on the rental side of things, I've come across a lot of Black people who are looking for their next apartment. Oftentimes, they do have the income, not a problem whatsoever. They do have the money. However, when I look a little bit closer, I notice in their credit, they have multiple items that are either in collections, they were previously in bankruptcy, high balances, so they're using up a lot of revolving credit, and their credit score is just not competitive compared to their counterparts. So compared to another person who's not Black but white or any other ethnicity or race, and same income but the higher credit score. So maybe there is some truth to what she's saying here based on data, but I would like to agree that there is something else going on other than race. There is something else going on with the paperwork that these people are providing. That's just my original take. I haven't even watched this video in its entirety. This is my first time watching it through with you. So let's see what else she has to say.
So for more on this, let's bring in John Hope Bryant, founder, chair, and CEO of Operation Hope, founder, chair, and CEO, Bryant Group Enterprises, and best-selling author of Financial Literacy for All. John, thank you for being with us. Always loved having you on. When you hear these statistics, what do you think the real issue is with the system reviewing Black applicants and applicants overall?
Well, good to be with you, Janae. But the real problem is that you don't have an Operation Hope solution across the country yet. That would solve the problem in total right now, because we're raising credit scores, lowering debt, increasing savings, making people more approvable. So that's the now answer. The historic answer is the data is right. That you've got a hangover here. You've got a hangover that's 100 years old, really 175 years old. That is tied to a history of discrimination in the country, by when banks were owned by and financial institutions were owned by private families, and a lot of this stuff was done. The government discriminated, FHA, in the early 20th century. So none of that's sort of a surprise. Then you have the fact that basically the formula was created by those who were using the formula, which was mostly back then white Americans. So it wasn't racism per se. It was really, I'm designing something.
I have to disagree with what this gentleman is saying, because a lot of the especially first-time home buyers, a lot of these programs are actually geared towards not specifically black people who normally cannot afford a mortgage, but just in generally speaking, there are so many different like housing programs, veterans assistance as well, like 100%. If you are in the military, for sure, you can get a subsidy in order to purchase a home. No ifs, ands, or buts about it, whether you're black or not. So I disagree with him in a modern day sense. I agree with him that definitely those practices, yes, hundreds of years, well, not hundreds of years, but I do agree with him that yes, it did happen in the past, but I want to believe that this has a lot to do with financial literacy. It is not encouraged in the black community from the time that you are extremely young that you need to have proper credit score, you need to have income. Like those conversations are not being had in most of traditionally in most of black households unless you come from maybe an upper middle class to an affluent black household. You'll have those conversations about how to manage your money from a very early age. Unfortunately, traditionally it's not the case. Home ownership is not something that is talked about in the black communities. It's all about renting, being continuous renters for the rest, pretty much for your entire life. Some black people, as they get older, they start to ask more questions, they start to be more curious and learn financial literacy a little bit later on in life. And by that time, they've either already used up their credit or their credit is just bad. And so they have to course correct. And by the time they course correct, their counterparts are already purchasing homes. So I do think it is in general a multifactorial issue and that can be fixed, but I don't necessarily believe that the system itself is just being discriminatory itself. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm just saying, in my opinion, objective opinion, that I don't think so. It may exist in certain communities where it's like predominantly white. An association involved. There's a board involved, and so if you are a new coming family that's coming into this community of just predominantly white, yes, it's very possible. It's very possible that they will look for ways to deny you of getting a mortgage and purchasing a property in that area. It can happen. Definitely, it can happen. And I did see something about a month ago where there was this white guy. He was creating his own little whites only community as well because he's just sick and tired of black people, the crime that happens in the neighborhoods, and he just wants to build his own little utopia where his white family and other white people can just live and exist in peace. And obviously not obviously, but yeah, I mean, I would have valid criticism for him, but then I also, like, at the same time, I agree with him a little bit because yeah, there's some of us that are just very prone to crime. And there are some of us that are not, that are very peaceful. And we would want to live in a society where there's not a lot of black people committing crime. But white people commit crime too. So, then there's that.
Using something for myself. And then the worst part is that blacks never got the memo. There was a Freedmen's Bank, 1865, as you know, created by Abraham Lincoln. Teach free slaves about money, financial literacy. He was unfortunately assassinated a month later. The bank drifted and was allowed to fail. And we never got the memo on financial literacy. Today, so one thing the data is not showing, Janae, is credit score data. We'll get into that hopefully in our next back and forth. But that's the key, that plus precise ratio. So if you bring in other things like rent statements, and utility bills, you get a better picture of the current applicant pool, because in a lot of these communities, you don't have prime credit providers. That's where I grew up. So you have secondary, you have used car dealerships. You don't have big banks and corporations. And so you're getting bad data. You're not getting.
Okay. I agree with him. Yeah. They don't have, I forgot what he said, but like, statements, like statements, utility bill statements. And another thing, especially if you're talking to, well, I don't know, it depends on the black family. They don't keep track of some of their payments like their counterparts would do. Some, not all, some. Again, they listed here, improved credit rating. Again, I literally just discussed that. Credit is a big issue. Is a big issue in the community. Very big issue. They'll take out loans, they'll take out credit cards, and they'll run up the bill, and probably don't pay on time, don't pay in full, etc. Comparable lenders. Well, if your credit is not attractive to begin with, you might have the income, right? But if you're not taking care of your credit, you're not gonna have options with, let's say, your local credit union or one of those big banks that I talked about, like Wells Fargo, Capital One, Chase, Bank of America. So you're not able to explore different options, different loan types, like a jumbo loan or 30-year fix. How would you know?
Good data.
Okay, so that does help paint more of the picture. Now, Financial Times pulled numbers from 2018 and 2023 collected under the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act, a law introduced half a century ago aimed at ending discrimination in the home loan market. But 40 years later, experts say not much has changed, to the point that you were making. So what's your take?
Well, it's lazy capitalism. If you're making money right across the street from you in suburban, wherever you are, why go to underserved any place? Why stress yourself? The problem is that the problem for lazy capitalism is that the country is becoming more and more diverse. Right? My rich friends need my poor friends to do better, if only to stay rich. So you cannot keep this up for another 20 years or another 10 years. We need everybody to rise. You can take no pleasure from the fact there's a hole in my end of our boat. And wealth and home ownership is the number one way you create wealth in America. So
Yeah, but okay. He's saying it's lazy capitalism, right? That's the problem, and they can't keep this up for another 10 to 20 years or so. So then why not promote to the black community, which you can? We have social media all over the place. Why not promote home ownership specifically targeted to the black community so that they improve their chances of getting a mortgage? They have to do better with their credit. Instead, what I'm seeing is a lot more capitalism in terms of retail. All they're doing is just buying up things, flashy things, this the new Jordans, the chains, the drip. The community as a whole, are they even interested in the first place? Are they interested in home ownership? We need to have that conversation. Let's be transparent about this. Only a handful, maybe a few percentage of blacks in America actually want to have a home. A lot of times you speak to black people, they'll just continue to rent. As long as the space is affordable, they'll continue to rent that space without any issues, as long as they have an income. We have to address that issue as well. What type of jobs are they going after so that they can have proper home ownership? We live in a time where it is expensive, the cost of living. So if you have a job at McDonald's or Wendy's or one of those retail giants, You can't have that. You can't have a job like that and expect to own a home unless you have some kind of side hustle, some business, or you are a skilled laborer, nurse, doctor, lawyer, And even then, you still need, some of them still even need financial literacy, because for some reason, whenever people have more money, they spend more. And sometimes they are very reckless. We go back to financial literacy. They're very reckless about how they're spending their money. So this is not about capitalism. This has a lot to do with consumer purchasing behavior.
Homeownership rate about 44% last time I checked. White homeownership rate about 75%. The delta, that 30% difference, is a large part of the wealth gap. And it's not that blacks are not qualified. We've been doing so much with so little for so long, we can almost do anything with nothing.
But that's the thing, though, right? A lot of times, you're doing with so much for so little for so long. A lot of times, blacks are not, they're not, like I said, they're not pursuing those high-ranking jobs like software engineer. It's tough to actually become a software engineer. You got to be pretty good at it, right? You have to go to school for it. So again, it all goes back to the very beginning: financial literacy, education. Are they skilled laborers? Are they able to get a job in a high-paying sector in order for them to save money, in order for them to qualify for home ownership? Or are they going to be dependent on the social systems that we have in place, like HUD housing, for them to qualify for a zero down on their mortgage, and then the government subsidize the entire housing for them? They still have to end up going to work and show that they can pay the mortgage, or else they'll get foreclosed on. So again, these conversations have to be had, and I don't think I don't think their argument is valid. I'm just going to be transparent. I don't think their argument is valid at all. I would debunk their argument and say, like, this is not race-based. This is consumer-based.
But we never were taught financial literacy, and we've had wealth creation opportunities for far less time. It goes back to what I said before about the hangover.
Blacks, whites, candy stripes have had wealth creating activities for the last 30, 40 years. And I would say 30, 40 years since the technology boom in modern history. 30, 40 years. We haven't had any laws, any legislations, anything that would prevent a black person in this society from accumulating wealth. We have several different types of entertainers and athletes. Who else? Scientists, engineers, so whether they're mechanical or civil engineers, building bridges and all that stuff. We've had a number of opportunities to build wealth in a 40-year period. What have black people done to do so?
I got an antidote for you. It's what Operation Hope does. But the hangover is 175 years advantage, self-dealing, or really self-creation of the formulas, and no updating of the data or the software in the last 30 or 40 years. So you end up with this. The data is correct. But what I'm learning is that Fulton Bank in Pennsylvania, one of our partners, we've done $1.2 billion in home ownership,
Wow.
for black ownership. Bank of America has done with us. I think my people told me it's like $40 million are pending applications. A large part of those are being approved. Wells Fargo is doing.
Yeah. All the banks are trying their best. Trying their best to do what? Approve for the mortgages. So again, you literally just debunked your own argument here, because the banks are attempting to help black people to get mortgages. But, two hands clap. They can help them, but at the same time, you have to present yourself with good income and good credit.
stuff with us, and I'm showing positive data because we're working, coaching people. It's not lowering the standards, it's increasing the competency. Because half of the black people have a credit score below.
That's what I have a problem with. I was just about to address that. Like, you can't lower the standards just because they're black and just because they're not qualified. You need to teach the financial literacy, and you need to bring people up so that they will be able to be competitive with somebody with the same income bracket, the same family size, etc. I think it's a disservice, to black folks if you are lowering the bar for them, like affirmative action, for example. Don't lower the bar. Just teach them the skills, teach them what they need to know so that they can be competitive.
620, little known fact, right? So you get we're seeing credit score increases of 54 to 100 points. And that confidence is kicking in, and people are getting approved. That's $4.5 billion of capital just throughout.
What did I just say? So because they did a pilot program with a financial literacy workshop, they were able to teach how to improve your credit. The participants were able to boost their scores by 54 points because I think to qualify for a mortgage is 620, but that's very low. Even though you qualify for a mortgage, your interest rate is going to be like sky high. So they were able to improve their credit score by 54 points, and boom, they got approved. So does that mean that they weren't approved before because they were black, or was it because they had a bad credit score?
Operation Hope work alone. And a lot of these the banks today are publicly traded, not privately owned from 150 years ago. I own the bank stock. You own the bank stock. The bank wants to fund the loans, but who's bridging that to get folks from unqualified to qualified? We are.
And so, John, credit is.
But also, my thing is that it can't always be up to the banks. It has to be the responsibility of the consumer as well. You want to purchase a home for your family, so you're going to do what it takes to qualify for a mortgage, or you're going to do what it takes to pay cash, because you don't have to finance your home. If you have the cash available, you don't have to finance. You can always pay it down.
Exactly the thing I want to ask you about next, because that's one of the factors in the study. It includes credit score, but how significant of an obstacle is credit score for black applicants? And what can people do if they are, quote, credit invisible, but have the dream of owning a home?
It's everything, Janae. I mean, your credit score, nothing changes your life more than God or love than moving your credit score 120 points.
Thank you.
somebody going to the club over the weekend, and they see somebody who's attractive, ask them what their credit score is after their name. I'm joking, but I'm serious. Like, it's as important as a 4-year education. And again, we've mapped every zip code by credit score in this country, and I want to actually give experience and credit and some thanks for helping us with the data. But it's a Hope index. You can go on my website and put in your zip code. I'll tell you your credit score. We found a 200 point difference, 15 minutes apart, Janae.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. In every urban city in America, everyone. Like, it's unbelievable. Black and white, by the way, rich and poor, it doesn't matter. What we found is if you live in Chicago, okay, you got Lincoln Heights. I think it's called Lincoln Heights. It's 750, something like that, credit score. You go to Garfield Park, 15 minutes away from that, and it's 500 and some, 580, 600. Wow. Atlanta, same thing. LA, same thing. Doesn't matter where it is, right? Seattle, same thing. So you lived at 61 years of age in a 500 credit score neighborhood, 550. You lived at 81 years of age, 15 minutes apart, in a 700 credit score neighborhood. 20-year difference. A 50-point pop in your credit score will increase your lifespan 5 years. And every other thing follows, right? Including ability to access prime credit. Because as you know, Janae, in these 500 credit score neighborhoods, 600, you have check cashers, payday loan lenders, rent-to-own stores, title lenders.
I want to talk about that. So where do you see primarily all these check cashing places? In black neighborhoods. You don't see that in other neighborhoods, white neighborhoods. You don't see that. You don't see these payday loans companies. Well, here in New York State is illegal. But app loans, you don't see that in other communities, but you see that in the black community. Because why? Consumer behavior. Black people have a spending issue. They have a spending issue. Instant gratification. I want things now. I want the bling bling. I want the flash flash. I want a lot of things. So they're not thinking about credit score. They're not thinking about home ownership. They're thinking about lifestyle. So that is inherently that is the issue in the community. So if the dialogue starts to change around, hey, you know what? Maybe you don't need that extra bling this week or whatever. Maybe you don't need to buy that flashy car, or not even buy. I think they lease the flashy car, and they're living in an apartment building. Maybe you can save that money instead of getting an auto loan. You can save that money, pay down your debt, your credit card consumer debt. Jump your credit score up. Maybe move to a cheaper neighborhood, or save your money while you're living with your parents. Prepare your credit score and then purchase a home. I mean, sounds like a reasonable thing to do. But these conversations needs to be had in the community as a whole, instead of blaming the banks for racism or being prejudiced with black folks who are getting mortgages. It is because of the underlying issues that are happening in the community. Like he just said, from zip code to zip codes, from state to state, there's a 200 score credit score difference.
There's liquor stores, pawn shops. You live in a 700 credit score.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention about the pawn shops. I've actually never done a pawn shop or anything like that, but I know friends that have in the past. Their gold chain, their gold bracelet or something like that. They do these things just to get access to cash right away. Instead of stop purchasing these things to look nice, to impress people who don't even like you in the first place, and put that money aside to pay off your debts and purchase a home. It's not that simple, because guess what? You'll be ostracized from your friends if you don't want to hang out, because you see these financial channels. You see some of these people talk online. They're like, oh, well, I stopped hanging out with my friends because, it's like I can't be drinking every weekend, da 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 da. Which is true. It's literally like, if you get really serious about your finances, like you're not going to have friends. You're not going to be going out like that. Maybe once in a while, once in a blue moon, you might pop out. But for the most part, if you are in serious debt and you really want to live the life of your dreams, buy a home, have a family, and all these things, you have to make a sacrifice. And I think that some black people are not willing to make that sacrifice.
Community, 15 minutes away,
Right.
is nirvana. Banks, restaurants. So this is an emerging market opportunity for banks. This is a tax revenue opportunity for the federal government. Look at the lack of black homeownership and the lack of black approvals.
Yes, there is. Of course, there is profit margins. There is opportunity here for blacks to participate in the home buying process. But we got to get them there. We have to get them qualified. We have to get them there. They're not even there.
As an opportunity, not a problem. Let's look at them as an emerging market. We don't want a handout. We want a hand up. Credit score is everything, because they got the job, they got the hustle, they got the work ethic. They want to be a homeowner like everybody else.
They definitely got the job. they definitely got the work ethic as well. Some may not have the high powered paying jobs, but they do have jobs, however. But I think there needs to be a shift in the type of work, like not settling for just minimum wage. Oh, the government has to increase the livable wage, etc., etc. We need to stop doing that and accepting baseline, and we need to start being like, okay, you know what? I want to be an astronaut. I want to be an engineer. I want to be a doctor, lawyer, I want social work. I want to be a software engineer, somebody who is getting paid a lot of money. And what does that mean? I need to have a proper education, whether it's a 4-year college degree or a high school diploma, and then I go and get a trade. Like, it could be a trade in anything, literally anything under the sun. We need lots of blue collar workers, because that plumber, that electrician who graduated from high school and learned that trade, within a couple of years, he or she is making like 6 figures already. You're already at the front of the line to not only save money for a house, but potentially you have the time to make a better credit score for yourself. All you need is, like, especially if you're brand new to credit, all you need is 1 full year of using your credit, and you're good. Pay on time, pay in full, don't carry a balance. Make sure you're not opening multiple cards at the same time. Again, it is there. The opportunities are there, but you have to be able to you have to be willing to make that sacrifice.
Count credit. I'm sorry, let's count the rent statements, like companies like Isuzu who do that, African-owned company, by the way. Let's count.
Also, some people are not able, especially in the New York market, some people are not able to get rent statements, not necessarily because some people are renting out rooms. So they're maybe paying, like, cash to their landlord, or maybe they're renting a room from a parent or something like that. So not necessarily rent payments would be a great metric for some people, okay? Just some. But there are others who are able to pay through a portal system, especially if they are in a rent stabilized building. They have their own, like, click pay portal system where you're able to see your rent payment history from like 2 to 3 or even more years, 4 years. Especially if you're applying for a mortgage, they want to see at least 2 years rent payments consistently, so that they can get like a payment history from you. If you don't have that, I guess the only thing they can technically rely on is your credit score. Your credit score does measure payment history as well.
Utility bills.
Yeah. And John,
oh yeah, utility bills. Utility bills is also a great way. So let's say it's in a scenario where you're renting a room. It's probably in your best interest to ask the owner if they can put your name on one of the utility bills, whether it's the gas or electric, Con Ed, so that you will continue to have a payment history.
we're out of time, but real quick, the first thing someone can do if they're looking to improve their credit score.
Consumer debt. The biggest pop. And again,
we went from the beginning of this conversation talking about, oh, blacks, they not getting they're not getting mortgages, they can be denied of mortgages, to how can someone improve their credit? Maybe that was the problem from the get-go.
This goes back to historic challenges. If you have been building wealth for a shorter period of time, you have more consumer debt and less stock.
Oh yeah, and consumer debt, right? They need to pay off their consumer debt.
Wealth, not homeownership wealth. But that is going to count against you the most. Get that under control. Get that down to 30%. You see your credit score pop.
So getting that consumer debt down. John Hope Bryant, thank you so much. Always appreciate having you on.
So it's not impossible, right? These people are so ridiculous. They're so ridiculous. I hate when people like make segments like this and then they got you thinking like, oh my gosh, people are being so racist against black people because they're not giving them home ownership. And then when you peel back the layers, you realize like, wait a minute. Oh, they coming in with low credit score because they got a whole bunch of consumer debt. I wonder if they fix this and then their points jump right up, right? Because they keep their utilization under 30%. And now they're able to qualify for a mortgage. So which one is it? Is it race-based or is it consumer behavior? And like I said, it's consumer behavior. That's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.